Hey everybody, mkwann here, Gregorian date October 7th, Gregorian year 2024. And we're going to talk for the third time about Helene. The story just keeps on growing and growing. This is real interesting what we're going to cover. But before we go there, the last video was kicked off by I was responding to a comment that was placed on YouTube underneath the video, and the guy who wrote it, Jeff, who I know, or I mean, I don't know personally, but we've exchanged emails before. He was on my good friend Emily Moyer's show, which is how I know him, and I guess he made reference to that comment. I didn't see the video. One of the viewers, Sophia, thank you very much. She sent me an email kind of giving me her take on what she saw. And so I guess Jeff said it was a bourbon fueled rant. I don't know if he thought, if it was kind of like funny or, for him it was funny. Regardless, if Jeff, you're watching, I hope it's all water under the bridge. No harm, no foul. I was really appreciative of that comment as an opportunity to go a little bit deeper into this Helene series. And then also Sophia said that you had made reference to the Columbia River out in Washington State. And sure enough, that seemingly ties into all this, as well as we saw in the last video, the Columbia Wrightsville Bridge and, all that sort of stuff. So anyway, let us go into this. This is just, this is just wild. Okay. Oh, but before I do that, I want to show you where I am. So I'm actually in the Starboard Lounge right now. I've talked about it. For anyone who comes out to Big Boy Farm, this is where we would meet. There's a Starboard right there. There's another seat. See out there. It's a great spot. First time I've recorded in here, so would love to see some folks if you live near New York City or Philadelphia. This is about 90 minutes from both of them. So anyway, with that being said, let us jump right into this. All right. So located in Asheville, the city of Asheville, I'm assuming this is the urban downtown, we have this National Centers for Environmental Information, and that's where they're located. And this is where the French Broad is. It's probably a mile away. So this National Centers for Environmental Information, Asheville, this is the headquarters for this organization. This organization is the hinge for the entire climate change narrative. Everything rests here. So there's a lot to go through. The building itself is called the Federal Climate Complex in Asheville, and it's home to the National Climatic Data Center. So this right here is probably, in addition to office space, is a data center, and this is the data center of the National Climatic, this NCEI, which we're going to talk about a little bit more deeper in a moment. And so this data center also maintained the World Data Center for Meteorology, Asheville. So there are 4 world centers, one in the U.S., this one right here, one in Russia, one in Japan, and one in China. And these are world data centers of meteorology. So all of the data which has been collected as it relates to all things in for the environment are housed in these data centers, these primary data centers, and then they are distributed worldwide. So this goes back to the general question, particularly, what was this event? You know, there's a lot of talk of it not being a natural storm, whether that be God enacting his anger as predicted in the solar eclipse of April 8th. You know, that was God's warning for what was coming, and then that goes and takes this data center out. I don't know. Or was this like an act of warfare, or was this maybe even purposeful to destroy this data center? I mean, there's something immensely ironic. No matter, this storm is going to get a lot of attention no matter what. No one's looking at it as a normal storm. The mainstream mind will look at this as a superstorm, as the byproduct of climate change. Conspiratorial perspective will look at this as a geoengineered storm for whatever reason. At the very least, we'll say that what happened in Asheville and Western North Carolina is tied in collective consciousness to, like, there's more to the story here. But let's say, you know, I said one of the options of, like, you know, assuming that this was done purposefully, you know, who benefits? That's, you know, that's a big question, and can be answered from a lot of different perspectives. But one possibility is we've had precedents in 9/11, World Trade Center number 7, that third building that fell, was a data center as well, and it housed the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission's data, investigative files for the Secret Service, and all of this information was destroyed when World Trade Center 7 went down. Typically what is thought of, you know, when people have looked at 9/11 from this perspective of the bringing down of World Trade Center number 9 has been like covering up or destroying all of these investigations. And it went back to the fact that these investigations were still connected to Enron and WorldCom, if anyone remembers that, and the connection to the sitting president at the time. Those were the biggest corporate scandals at that time, and it connected directly to the Bush family. Anyway, what I'm suggesting is, like, you know, is that a possibility? Now, I don't know if this data center was destroyed, and I also don't know if this data center is backed up. It's most likely all this data is backed up elsewhere, but who knows? I'm just throwing that out there. But let's go back into this National Centers for Environmental Information, and you can really get to appreciate what I'm talking about, why this data is so significant, because everything in the mainstream world, which is being built upon climate change, and then all of the everything that comes from that narrative, it is all grounded on data. And this is where it all comes together. Another way of thinking about that is, like, let's suppose, and I don't know if this is the truth, but maybe it is, that data is manipulated. Let's say that there is data that is being taken or being changed to support a narrative, or let's say that the data is hiding for is hiding something else which no one wants to know, or which needs to be kept hidden from researchers, from researchers who aren't really in on the know. Like, this is where it would happen. This is how it could happen, because everything, all of the data has this single point of collection. So, all right, let's get into this. The National Centers for Environmental Information is a U.S. government agency that manages one of the world's largest archives on atmospheric, coastal, geophysical, and oceanic data. The NCEI is operated by the National Environmental Satellite Data and Information Service, so NESDIS, an office of NOAA, which operates underneath the Department of Commerce. So said another way, you've got the Department of Commerce is the top of the hierarchy, and then you've got the NOAA, and it's got this subdivision, and then this falls underneath that. I mean, this is just like, bureaucratic. I mean, this is a big organization, right? This is an important, significant thing, and it's 4 layers deep, in the 5 layers deep. What does the Department of Commerce roll up to? I guess that's a cabinet position. I don't know my government. It's been a while since I've been in 11th grade. All right. So this NCEI, this government agency, is a for-profit entity. It's a profit center. Maybe I should go back to that 11th grade government class, because I don't understand, I'm trying to imagine from just the normal nuts and bolts of how mainstream reality works, is how does a government agency charge for services and has an income base? Like, who gets that money? Do you pay taxes on that money? Does that money go to the same place as taxes go? I don't know. It's interesting. It's under the Department of Commerce. Is there some sort of loophole if you're a Department of Commerce, if you're underneath that you can participate in commerce? I don't know. Anyway, so why do I say that? This here is the mission and vision statement of NCEI. So they say, NCEI provides environmental data, products, and services. Products and services, these are things that are paid for. That's what a business does. A business provides products and services. This is a government agency. I don't know how that works, but it does. Covering the depths, so they offer products and services covering the depths of the ocean to the surface of the sun to drive resilience, prosperity, and equity for current and future generations. So their data products and services are to drive prosperity. Like, that's business talk. That's, what? If this is a government agency, why are they talking that way? I mean, other than the fact that, I don't know. I'll pause on that for a moment. And equity. All right. Vision. A tenacious and trusted leader in environmental information. What does tenacious even mean here? Like, these words don't just happen. Like, they have executive retreats. They hire, important managerial consulting firms to help with the writing of a mission statement and a vision statement. So tenacious was a word. There's probably a whiteboard with like 30 other different words where they said, we want to have 2 adjectives to describe what we do. And it was agreed upon that it's tenacious. All right. So this is a tenacious leader in environmental information for a rapidly changing world with a focus on. So the world is changing and they're focusing. So they're part of the change. They are a trusted leader in this rapidly changing world, and they're a leader with environmental information, and they're focusing on driving lasting good. What does lasting good mean, right? Who's it good for? Lasting good across our partnerships. Who are we interested in lasting good with? Who we partner with. Our economy, because why? We are a business around the world and the U.S. and the world. So I guess like one of the main takeaways is like, I mean, this complements, I think, a lot of my friend Alison McDowell's work, because she gets really deep into the nitty gritty of how the actual organizations you never hear about work. And this is one of those examples. It'll be a bit of a deep dive into this organization, which is, at the end of the day, it is we're going to see it's a military business. So let's keep going on. The NCEI archive contains more than 60 petabytes of data, equivalent to more than 700 million filing cabinets with documents. Users access tens of thousands of data sets, hundreds of products. Data are collected by NOAA, other agencies, departments of the U.S. government, as well as by other institutions, organizations, and governments around the world. This is why this is a world center. It is, even if there are other places that receive the data, we're going to see that NCEI has variety of locations. And this headquarters data center in Asheville is where all of those satellite offices bring their information. But then we could also see they're getting all of the information by other institutions, organizations, and governments. So all over the world, all of these different organizations which are collecting data all come here. They all come to this data center in Asheville. Environmental data are collected by many sources: satellites, land-based stations, ocean buoys, ships, remotely operated underwater vehicles, weather balloons, radar, forecasting, climate models, paleoclimatic research. Once transmitted to the NCEI, data are archived and made available for the use of researchers in other public and private sectors. The data and products offer information about climate, weather, coasts, oceans, and geophysics. The NCEI subject matter experts. So these are guys who are working for this organization, and then they collaborate with scientists across the globe to produce world-class research. So if it's world-class research, we know these are world-class facilities, the top universities, the top research entities, UN, like everything which is thought of as world-class. The world-class, anything which is independent. It's almost like imagine a tourist field, the information comes into the NCEI, they do whatever they do to it, and then their subject matter experts then go outside to all of the research which is done, and then they help them write papers. 90 papers in peer-reviewed journals. So in 2022, 90 papers in peer-reviewed journals were connected to these SMEs. I'm assuming all of these papers are all going to be climate oriented. That's 90. That's one paper every 4 days is coming out, and it is influenced by this organization. And, what is this organization ultimately about? Lasting good across our partnerships in the economy. So at the very least, this organization and these SMEs who are helping writing all of these climate papers, and these climate papers are then used for policy, right? It's all being driven by dollars and cents. All right, let's keep going with this. This is crazy. Areas of study were as varied as the environmental data housed in NCEI: hurricanes, drought, ocean warming, fire science, solar flares, artificial intelligence, marine microplastics. This is also where, if there's any information that points to exotic technology or weather anomalies, this is where it gets hidden. All of the information which is then put out to independent research organizations, the independent research organizations that would be working with the subject matter experts of this NCEI, if there's any information which had been collected, which if it were analyzed, people would be able to say, people who have no idea that maybe weather manipulation is a thing, I'm assuming it's a thing, and we'll get into why a little bit later, but this organization, because everything comes through it, this is where, things can be scrubbed. This is where information is taken, could get cleaned very, very easily. It all goes through here. Here's a map of the NCEI's locations. Here they are headquartered in Asheville. They've got a satellite office in Boulder. They've got something in Silver Spring, Maryland, right outside of D.C., and something right here at the Stennis Space Center in Mississippi, right on the Gulf of Mexico. So let's go through some of the personnel here. This is the leadership team. This is the director, this guy, Deke Arndt. I think I'm pronouncing it correctly. And again, we see that all of this, it's very, very clear that this is a for-profit business. This is Derek. They call him Deke here. They call him Derek here. This was on the American Meteorological Society's website. You can see right here that in recent years he served on the Council of the American Meteorological Society and was co-lead editor of the AMS's annual State of the Climate report. You know, this is, everything is all information is shaped through, as it relates to climate and climate direction, we could see that it's being shaped by the same individuals and the same organizations. So this guy is the head of this NCEI, and this is, from what I gathered, from what I saw on the website, this guy was running for office, for a particular office, back in 2022. You can see he looks much heavier here than right there. So he looks like he's changed. His hair is different. He was running for, from what I gathered from where I took the screenshot, he was running for a position for the AMS, to an elected position, and this is kind of like, I guess, his stance. And what he's saying is, as our society enters, and they're talking about the American Meteorological Society, so this is a different organization, though very complementary to the National Centers of Environmental Information. So now we've got, if we're in the Meteorological Society, you know, we're connected to TV weathermen at least. Let's go back to this. As our society enters its second century, we face two strategic challenges across many scientific societies. One is the ongoing rapid transformation of the information economy. So again, we're the American Meteorological Society, and what our top challenge is economy. It's dollars and cents. So he's running on his, his platform here is dollars and cents. This is all dollars and cents. That was my main point, which I wanted to bring about Derek or Deke. So now we got this other guy. We're still in the leadership of the NCEI, and it's Scott Hausman. He is the Chief Information Technology Services. He's the chief of the Information Technology Services Division. So whatever services they're providing with data, they're coming. This guy oversees all of that. And we see that he has a 24-year career with the U.S. Air Force. So this guy he's military. He's career military. He's like military, and then transitioned over to this organization, and we're going to see in a moment that this organization is strongly military. It is underneath the Department of Commerce. It is a for-business entity, and it's got like a military strong arm at the highest levels. Dr. Hausman brings, this is from another bio I found on this guy, from another organization he was involved with. He brings over 30 years of civil and military leadership experience providing staff and line weather and climate support to agencies across the federal sector, led operational and research organizations. Let's see, what else? Dr. Hausman previously served with the NOAA Climatic Data Center. That's really interesting too when we just think about the wordplay: climatic, climate, climax. Yeah. As the chief of the Support Services Division, and prior to that was the acting director of NOOESRLGSD. I have no idea what the hell that means, right? Prior to that, he was the commander of the 14th Weather Squadron U.S. Air Force. So he was the commander of the 14th Weather Squadron. Let's go look at that. 14th Weather Squadron is part of the U.S. Air Force. This is a military operation. So this guy goes from being the head of this military operation to the head of this organization. And we see that the Weather Squadron is a geographically separate unit of the 2nd Weather Group. The squadron is located in the Federal Complex, the Valley Beach Federal Complex, which is this. This may be a campus. It might include other buildings as well, but we see that this 14th Weather Squadron is located there as well, and their mission is military applied climatology. I mean, that can mean all sorts of things, right? Military applied climatology. But then it says this, which is a whole lot softer sounding. The 14th Weather Squadron collects, protects, and exploits authoritative climate data to optimize military and intelligence operations. So this is, now we're connected again to the intelligence agency. So we you know, look at this. What happened here? How does the storm come and destroy this city, right? Like the whole, we haven't even gotten to like the, what I think is the deepest part, but like this is the epicenter. Like this is a military intelligence organization, and it took a hit on the chin. Was the hit like, you know, who made that hit? You know, as I indicated in those other movies, I guess you could call them movies, in those other videos, undoubtedly, there's a Susquehanna Mystery River and Stars link. Like, go back to all of the videos which I've talked about in the different River and Star ceremonies. Like, we're always bumping up against, like, you know, look at the one where I talked about Berkeley Springs and then Quantico, or Occoquan, which is right by Quantico. Like this is so integrated, this overlap between these organizations and this work we're doing here. Am I too close to it to see it? I don't know. Anyway, let's keep going back to this because this is crazy. So this Weather Squadron, which is in the same complex as the NCEI, and the leadership is the same, also works military and intelligence operations. The 14th Weather Squadron provides information worldwide to the Air Force, to United Combatant Commands, the intelligence communities, and the Department of Defense. And then it says right here, the WS also collaborates with the NCEI. Like, of course, like, what does collaborate means? Like, is this official? Is this like, you know, we know that they're on the same campus, and this is just how the world works, right? This spot right here is immensely significant. All right, so let's just keep going down. So this is Air Force, and this guy is Weather Squadron commander. And remember these stories. Like, this was all big deal, conspiracy talk, probably in the early 2000s. This paper right here, which came out in 1996, and it was from the, I believe, Military Operations Strategy and Tactics. I believe it was from, connected to the Air Force, but it's called, the title of the paper is Weather as a Force Multiplier, Owning the Weather in 2025. This was written in 1996, right? We're, 90 days away? We're less than 90 days from calendar date 2025. Here's the abstract. In 2025, U.S. aerospace forces can own the weather by capitalizing on emerging technologies and focusing development of those technologies to war-fighting applications. Such a capability offers the warfighter tools to shape the battlefield in ways never before possible. It provides opportunities to impact operations across the full spectrum of conflict and is pertinent to all possible futures. The purpose of this paper is to outline a strategy for the use of future weather modification systems to achieve military objectives rather than provide a detailed technical roadmap. A high-risk, high-reward endeavor, weather modification offers a dilemma not unlike the splitting of the atom. While some segments of society will always be reluctant to examine controversial issues such as weather modification, the tremendous military capabilities that could result from this field are ignored at our own peril. From enhancing friendly operations or disrupting those of the enemy via small-scale tailoring of natural weather patterns to complete dominance of global communications and counterspace control, weather modification offers the warfighter a wide range of possible options. Some of the potential capabilities of the weather modification system could provide a warfighting commander in chief of the CINC are listed in Table 1. Technology advancements in 5 major areas are necessary for an integrated weather capability: advanced nonlinear modeling techniques, computational capability, information gathering and transmission, a global sensory array, a weather intervention techniques. Some intervention tools exist today and may be developed and redefined. So this was written in 96, right? Like, I've never read this. I just like know it exists. If you're interested, I definitely recommend going reading it. It's an open PDF written in 1996, so 30 years ago almost. And it says that in 2025, that, that's when we'll own the weather. And it describes basically, that last portion, these technological advancements, nonlinear modeling, computational capability, information gathering and transmission. They're describing this. They're describing this. And this thing is taken out 90 days before 2025. If we want to go with this as a model, let's say there's timeline manipulation and people in the future can go and affect the past, like the Terminator movie. Is this the future taking out this entity before 2025 hits? Who knows? We don't know what this realm is, but the clues and fingerprints are all around us. All right. We're still just getting started. Or actually so this was written in 1996, and it's talking very, very openly about weather modification and warfare. This kind of implies weather modification and warfare when it says military applied climatology. That could be all sorts of stuff. Here it just says, we're just collecting and protecting data. We're a data thing. But then we've got this. It was called the Environmental Modification Convention, and it was a treaty, an international treaty prohibiting the military or other hostile use of environmental modification techniques having widespread, long-lasting, severe effects. This was signed in 1977. This convention bans weather warfare and weather modification. This was 1977. This was signed 20 years before this was even written, right? This was written in 96. Like, why would they sign a weather modification treaty 20 years earlier unless weather modification was a possibility? Do we sign treaties right now about technologies which supposedly don't exist? I mean, maybe they do. I don't know. So we've got this line right here. I mean, I'm just pointing out the convolutedness and strangeness about the information which is implied and the information which is publicly available and what we can see with our own eyes. And just as we're watching this climatic event unfold before us. It is unclear whether this is, I just screenshot this from Wikipedia. It is unclear whether the International Court of Justice will consider the NMOD, that's this, treaty when it issues a legal opinion on international climate change obligations requested by the United Nations General Assembly on March 29th, 2023. So international climate change obligations. So they're saying, like, I mean, this is how I interpret it at least, is this international court would say, like, yeah, is weather modification warfare? Does this treaty hold weight? Are we going to hold anyone to this treaty as it relates to obligations in the international climate change world? All right. So now this is what I think is probably like the craziest thing here. So now we're going to another one of the leadership guys of this NCEI, and it's Jeff Privet. I don't know. I think I'm saying his name right. And he is the Chief of Climate Science and Services Division. How is that different than this guy? This is Information Technology Services Division, and this is Climate Science Service Division. Jeff began with NASA, where he led MODIS and VERIS land validation programs and field campaigns, served as NASA's deputy project scientist for some scientists. I think NASA also is Department of Commerce, if I'm remembering correctly. Anyway, this is where I'm going. He currently chairs the joint CEO-CGMS Working Group on Climate, among various other service roles. So he chairs this thing, this monstrosity of a name, Joint CEO CGMS Working Group on Climate. So what is that? So he chairs it. So this guy is he steers it. This is the man who is steering what this thing is. So we don't know what this thing is yet, but this is the guy who is steering it. So here we have it. The Joint CEO CGMS Working Group on Climate. So what is it? Creating a global atmospheric carbon dioxide inventory to support the global stockade. So we're going to have to go and define global stockade in a moment, but what we see is that this group, which is chaired by this guy, and this guy is in the leadership of this entity, right? This guy is leading this. And what are they doing? So let me expand here. Let's get a little bit bigger for this. So these are the things which this organization does. So define capabilities and requirement. Opportunity. Sounds like business, right? This is dollars and cents. Ground-based, airborne, and space-based atmospheric carbon dioxide measurements are now being assimilated into atmospheric transport models to estimate CO2 emissions and uptake on scales spanning individual large power plants to nations. Objectives: develop top-down global atmospheric inventories to reduce uncertainties for inventory reports, to identify additional reduction opportunities, to provide nations with timely and quantified guidance on progress toward their emission reduction targets, track changes in the natural carbon cycle caused by human activities in climate change, developing pilot products. So this is a product. This organization, this thing right here, is developing products to support the global stockade. They are using data. Where are they getting the data from? NCEI, and being led by the guy who's one of the leaders there, to then create these products and then work with the users. These initial products from these efforts will be delivered at the end of 2021 to support the inventory development of the global stockade. All right. I want to go back to this for a moment. It is unclear whether the International Court of Justice will consider this weather modification treaty when it issues the legal opinion on international climate change obligations. This here is how we're going to measure. These are the obligations they're talking about. We're going to provide nations with timely and quantified guidance on the progress towards their emission reduction targets and pledges. And so these are NDCs. These are the obligations. These are the obligations they're talking about. When this here says that we are going to decide whether or not we're going to use weather warfare, whether there is a legal justification on using weather warfare for people who are not meeting, or more so countries that are not meeting their obligations. This is going to be the product of how they're going to measure. What are they measuring? The global stockade. This is creating the global atmospheric inventory to support the global stockade. What is the global stockade? This is the United Nations climate change. The global stockade is a critical turning point when it comes to the efforts to address climate change. It's a moment to take a long, hard look at the state of our planet and chart a better course for the future. According to the Paris Agreement, parties shall periodically take stock of its implementations to assess the collective progress towards achieving the purpose of the agreement and its long-term goals. Like the stockade, the stocktake. It's not a stockade. It sounds like it. It's the stockade. Stocktake. That's hard for me to say. This is, and listen to this language. It's time to take a long, hard look. We're getting serious about this, ladies and gentlemen, and it is based upon the Paris Agreement. Paris, remember, where the Sequana or the Seine had the opening ceremony. Sequana is the name of the river goddess of the Seine. She is the French woman. What is slang for a woman? A broad. Sequana, Seine, French broad. You know, it's all friggin' connected in this wordplay. And we see, this is crazy. All right. So we're going to the Paris Agreement. The Paris Agreement was an international treaty on climate change that was signed in 2016, and the treaty covers climate change mitigation, adaptation, and finance. The Paris Agreement was negotiated by 196 parties at the 2015 United Nations Climate Change Conference near Paris. Of the 3 UN FCCC member states which have not ratified the agreement, the only major emitter is Iran. The United States withdrew in 2020 and then rejoined in 2021. So that means everyone but Iran and whoever the other 2 countries are, like, they did not sign this agreement. Here's the stockade. Under the Paris Agreement, countries must increase their ambition every 5 years. So let me finish this before we go deep into that. To facilitate this, the agreement established the Global Stocktake, which assesses progress with the first evaluation in 2023. The outcome is to be used as input for a new nationally determined contributions of parties. So all these countries came together in the Paris Agreement and they signed this thing saying we got to lower our carbon dioxide. Like when you talk about all of these greenhouse gas emissions, like this is where the contracts, this is where the word is written, the blood is signed, whatever that is, right? 196 parties, all but 3 signed it. And then they have to agree. There's an overall, I guess, there's an overall goal. I mean, I'm not that familiar with the Paris Agreement, but, you know, we've got to reduce emissions by 90% or whatever it is. And then the countries, they give their commitment of all of the energy and all of the companies that are within their borders, that they're going to reduce their emissions. They're going to reduce their emissions. And then by such a percentage, this is what the Paris Agreement is. And then they say every 5 years, we're going to ratchet it up. Okay, you reduced it by 13%. Now you got to ratchet. Now it's got to be 23%. This is like the same thing in Pennsylvania. So I live in Pennsylvania. It's called the PSSAs. They are these state tests, which show a school's progress. And there's been a lot of controversy over the last 10 years, how at least in public schools or in schools which receive PSSA money, that they have to continually get higher and higher, more ambitious percentage of the students passing. So the entire school year becomes taught about teaching to a test. You know, that's kind of the narrative which is being put out. And it's based upon dollars and cents. These school districts accept large cash influxes into their budget. And in agreement, they say that we're going to start doing the PSSAs and all of that. This is the same model. This is the same model. You get all of these countries on board with the climate control. I mean, this story which I'm sharing with you right now, I mean, this has been around for a long time. Like, I've never really cared about it so much. Like, I'm aware that this is how the world works on a certain level, but like, looking how all of this is so connected to this Asheville event is just like blowing my mind. The Global Stocktake is the mechanism. Like, it feels like, you know, the mob or the mafia. It's like, you know, we're going to make you do business with us. And these terms are horrible, and our interest rates are great. But if you don't pay up, you know, I'm here. It's a protection scheme. What are we protecting you from? Well, it seems like right here, we're going to be protecting you from, quite possibly weather modification. Right? Weather warfare. If you're not going to go and play ball, you know, this is on the table. So and they're telling you this, like, this is in the language which they're saying. So the Global Stocktake is created as a way of managing what all of these 193 countries that are part of the UN, they agreed. They said, we're agreeing to whatever the details of the Paris Agreement, and the Stocktake will go and manage it. And the Stocktake is not only that, the Stocktake is going to not just manage it, they're going to create products so that actually the countries themselves are probably doing their own self-management, but they're going to sell them the products so that they can go and police themselves. You know, it's the same way that you and your local municipality are paying taxes so that there could be speed traps so that you can get a shakedown because you're going 10 miles over this, you know, the posted speed limit. It's the same friggin' model. All right, this is nuts, friggin' nuts. So the Global Stocktake, under the Paris Agreement, countries must increase their ambition every 5 years. To facilitate this, the Global Stocktake was created, blah, blah, blah. The Stocktake works in part of Paris's efforts to create a ratcheting up of ambition in emissions cuts. Because analysts agreed in 2024 that NDCs would not limit rising temperatures below 2%, the Global Stocktake reconvenes parties to assess how their NDCs must evolve so that they are continually reflect a country's highest possible ambition. I mean, this just sounds like the worst friggin' language, right? You know, they're like, we are going to hold you to this. We gave you this stuff before. What are these? These NDCs. So the NDCs are when people could trade for carbon credits. And that's what this is, the carbon credit trading. And then this here seems to say what? that the NDCs would not limit rising temperatures below 2 degrees Celsius. The Global Stocktake reconvenes parties to assess how their new NCDs must evolve. Like, this is like strong arming countries. If you've ever read, I mean, this was a popular book. I think it came out in the 90s. It was called Confessions of an Economic Hitman. And it was talking about basically how pressures are done on countries to take money to build these infrastructure projects, like huge amounts of monies from like the World Bank and all of these international, I mean, the same organizations as we're talking about here would take, developing nations would go and be forced to take these huge loans which could never be repaid, and then because they can't be repaid, that land was or the infrastructure or the natural resources were then legally handed over to the loan holder. I mean, this is the same note. This is mafia style business. And all of it comes back to this organization that is about making money from the very, very beginning. We're like, how can we make money? How we have the strong arm of the military behind us, and we are also the people who are working hand in hand with the UN. So I get, this is just so wild. Like, you know, when you see all of this connection and you see, then you put into context what just happened in Asheville. You know, is someone fed up with this? Is someone else who is tired of getting the squeeze? Are they pushing back? You know, is this karmic? Is this from the future? I don't know. But there's more to this. You know, I'm curious to see what's going to come up next. All right, how do I want to round this up? I'm greatly appreciative. I've been getting a bunch of inquiry on Starboard sessions, and that's really good because I want to go to Austin, another Heart of the Beast. I was invited to go to Austin to be on a podcast in November. And I want to go there, and I want to go, I could do it remotely, but I want to go in person, and I need to fund that. So anyone who can go and you want to support this, you know, get a Starboard session. I kind of, it's funny, you know, I was like, oh, they're so difficult to do, or maybe not they're so difficult to do, but there's a lot of technology involvement in order to do this. So I was kind of like complaining a little bit about it. I'd love to have people come here in person if you can do it. Remember, this is an Airbnb retreat center, so even if it's a hike, there's a place for you to stay. But if not, you know, I'm immensely grateful despite all of my whining and crying, you know. You know, this is just what I got to do. And it provides, in my opinion, a really, really beautiful and valuable service to anyone who is on the receiving end. And I love the opportunity to go and connect with people. So if that's something, if you watch this video and you want to continue to support this work and support what we're doing, that would be a great way to do it. Follow up with me with, you know, I do read the comments on YouTube. I read the comments which come to me from email, which not all of them do on YouTube. I don't respond to them, but if you email me, you'll usually get an email back. So anyway, take good care, and wild world we're living in. Till the next time, mkwann, check it out.